welcome back. Actually, this is a very special segment. Why? Because we're still bringing to you the latest coverages about how Egypt is preparing for the upcoming huge summit, COP27, that is expected to take place in the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh. And every sector of society, we have youth, we have women, we have international community, we have also the civil society, we have the NGOs inside Egypt and outside Egypt. Everywhere, each of them are preparing their own topics and their own interests and their own papers to present at this huge summit. And of course, we have the youth sector. Today I have with me a very special guest, because he is at a very young age, he was interested in taking a comprehensive look over the dangers and threats to climate change at an early age, like I said. When he was in his late years of school, and he isn't studying in school, and he educated himself. He was interested to educate himself about the dangers of climate change, and he is participating in the COP27 also with lots of activities. We were talking before air, and he's going to introduce himself, and we're very delighted to be having with us Mohab Sharif Mohsen Gharib, and he is a COP27 participant. He's going to talk about himself and talk about his activities and how he is participating in the upcoming COP27 this November, inshallah. Good morning, Mohab.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Great.
So you are still studying in school?
Yes, I'm still studying in school, and this is actually my final year. I am hoping to use this experience in my university and actually maybe transform education before I get to university to adapt to climate change.
Of course. You decided to take a deeper look over the dangers and challenges of climate change. At which age? At when exactly did you decide to do that?
Yeah,
and why?
Yeah, I started 2019. I started to explore what's climate change, what's the Paris Agreement, what's all of that, why everyone is angry at the warming of the planet, why the planet is warming. So I took a deeper look through research articles, through the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC. So I learned a lot about what we are lying at. We have got sea level rise that will impact the very Egypt, let's say Alexandria. We have got droughts every now and then. We have got heat waves in Egypt. We have got wildfires across
endangered species.
Endangered species. Every type of disaster. Avalanches. Every type of disaster we're going to face. So when I started to educate myself, I actually took another step, but it was during COVID. I actually participated in the creation of something similar to the Conference of the Parties. First of all, what is a Conference of the Parties? Conference of the Parties is where stakeholders, leaders, decision makers, scientists, activists, and young leaders participate to discuss and negotiate on what to do in terms of climate action. It started in 1995, where it was hosted in Berlin, and then in the third edition of COP, we did the Kyoto Protocol. I mean, the world leaders did the Kyoto Protocol. It was mainly focusing on mitigation, but it failed because it was not implemented in time. Then in 2015, we managed to have a very huge agreement, which is called the Paris Agreement. It launched something called the Nationally Determined Contributions, where countries set their goals basically, and they have to update these goals to in terms of cutting down emissions, in terms of adapting to the climate, in terms of transforming into a green smart city. So these are basically what happened during the negotiations so far. What we hope that we can achieve from this COP, specifically in Egypt, we called it the COP of implementation. This is a very huge name because we have to implement everything basically we discussed in 2015 Paris Agreement, and we have to make sure that people from the global south and countries from the global south are able to adapt to the climate. So we have to ensure that climate finance is enrolled in these countries. So it's a very huge year of negotiations and actually lots of talks about also loss and damage, because as you see, Pakistan, for example, third of the country flooded by water. Who is going to pay for that? How are they
And
going to
Australia and California now.
and California, and we have got and actually previously, like a few weeks ago, Canada as well faced a
Exactly.
huge hurricane. So every now and then we face climate crisis, especially in the global south. Look at Pakistan.
The
Look at
scarcity of water also.
water scarcity across Africa. We face lots of issues. Who is going to pay for that? So I'm gonna introduce myself and I walk you through a little bit what we need as people from the global south and why this is important for the people of the global south this year, especially Africa and the MENA region. So hello everyone, my name is Mohab Sharif Muhammad Mohsen. I am a 17-year-old Egyptian climate advocate, and I'm very interested in climate change. I actually participated in the creation of something called mock COP, where we created something similar to COP, and we managed to make a treaty with around 18 policies from over 140 countries of young leaders. Young delegates participated in this creation. It was actually a virtually led model of COP. In 2020, at the end of 2020, that's why I said I started in the beginning of Corona. And we expanded from there to implement the treaty, focusing on climate education, and some mentioned climate adaptation, but what we did was more on climate education, of implementation into schools. And then we gradually took another step in COP26 in Scotland. We managed to create the Education Ministers Summit, where we invited around 30 ministers and 30 stakeholders to discuss with young leaders what needs to be done in terms of transforming education. And this was a huge step for people inclusion and young leaders inclusion in the process. Because we need to educate people in the school. We need, as young leaders, to have a voice for our future. So this was a huge step as well. And this year as well, I'm participating in COP as a part of the steering committee on the Children and Youth Pavilion. We're going to launch for the first time a youth pavilion in the negotiation process. And this is as well a very historical step for us as young leaders in the decision-making process. So,
Can I get in here? You are participating in COP27 on behalf of a community, on behalf of your school, on behalf of one of the activities that you're participating. I mean, tell us, how are you participating?
I'm participating in COP27 for many reasons, but I would say I'm representing
Yes.
representing the team of MOCOP, the climate education team, and they are very active young leaders. And as well, I'm gonna be representing on behalf of my local organization in Egypt. It's called Act Sustainable. These people organize the local conference of the youth, which is held every year before COP and COI. And I'm gonna walk you through what is COP and COI. So COI is a conference of the youth, conference of the parties, and local COI is local conference of the youth. They hosted the local conference of the youth this year in different 6 governorates. I was actually traveling with them this year in 6 different governorates: Alexandria, Aswan, Fayoum, Luxor, Red Sea, and Matruh. We managed to get different policy papers and different inputs from youth from these regions to uplift their voices in the upcoming conference of the parties and conference of the youth. Why this is important for inputs and why this is important? Because we need, first of all, as I said, we need to make sure that people are meaningfully engaging with the decision-making process, and this is one of the ways that we can help youth to engage. And I am a youth person as well, so I have to help them in this process. Why this is important? Because we come up with a global youth statement from the Conference of the Youth, later on carrying on in the Conference of the Parties. This is a global youth statement. This is what youth are demanding from more leaders, so you have to respond to that and act accordingly. And,
who is the founder of this organization?
Founder of the Conference of the Youth and local. It's actually endorsed by the official youth constituency, Yongo. This is a youth-led team, ensuring that youth are empowered and uplifted.
They're Egyptians or?
No, it's a global. It's global.
It's global.
Yeah.
So you were in grade 10?
Yes.
Were,
Yes.
were you participating? So how could you manage between your schedule in school and in such huge events?
Actually, I would say this was more of a passion to learn more, and then it turned into a responsibility. So everything is manageable, especially if
Were you
you...
directed by your father or mother,
No,
maybe?
actually, no. I was actually all by myself in the beginning, and it's actually I took many risks to learn lots of things, and I would say that if I have a future that's going worse and worse and worse, what else do I have to worry? If my studies won't be able to adapt me to what's going to happen the next few decades. So I act responsibly in the climate, and I have to ensure that everyone is aware, and we have to adapt now.
Exactly. But how did your interest in climate change or standing up to the challenges of climate change start? It started with studying physics, for example. It studied in school, in your sessions while you were reading. How exactly did it spark to you?
Okay, so actually, when I was in Alexandria in 2019, many people talked about rising sea levels in Alexandria, and I saw what the sea
It was
walls...
very alarming, yes.
Yeah, and sea walls built in there. I was curious, what's
How
this?
old were you then?
I was around 14, I can remember. um, Everyone was talking, what the sea level rise? And actually, I was so curious until...
So your parents explained to
He
you?
told me this is for sea level rise, but I was not, what is sea level rise? What's going to happen? So when I
So you were asking too much.
Yeah, when I returned, I actually started reading a lot about climate change. And then one day I was watching the PPC. I saw this young Swedish girl, Greta Thunberg. She's a very famous person, and
Of course.
she is she's a youth leader. She started a movement of young leaders. Basically, they are demanding immediate climate action from stakeholders, and this inspired me. She was around 16 back then, or 15, and she started when she was 13 years old. She attended COP 24 when it was hosted in Katowice, Poland. So why not I, as a young person, start doing similar actions and trying to learn more and to demand change. So this inspired me a lot, because there are lots of young people from different countries, and I'm still learning, and this was a spark for me basically. And I then started engaging with people from around the world, network of students around the world. Later on, I communicated with many Egyptians, including, let's say, Abdallah Ahmad and Hussam Amam, the founders of El Khoury in Egypt. So this was...
How did you communicate with those people?
Actually, I saw them attending COP26, so I managed to communicate to them. And they previously actually...
So you were in COP26?
No, I was supposed to attend COP26.
You were
but
following over
Yeah, I was following
on
the
social media.
Yeah, I was following the
So you
negotiation.
contacted them?
Yeah, we contacted, and we managed to collaborate after that throughout this year. Actually, we collaborated a lot throughout this year. Like in the beginning of the year, we attended and co-organized something called Afro-Arab Volunteers for Climate. It was endorsed by the Ministry of Youth and Sports in Egypt. And now we are currently organizing the local conference of the youth in the governorate. We managed to do that, and it was a huge success for us. And we are going to organize one in Cairo soon, so make sure to attend it.
Of course. Right. So who educated you with all the information, required information for what you wanted to hit? I mean, this particular community of studying means to stand up to climate change and sustainable goals, and how to be able to start up this very long road. Who educated you? I mean, you were doing your own research or what?
Firstly, I was doing my own research. Later on, fellow advocates educated me with their works and with their experience, and I educated them as well. So it was common between us that we wanted to learn more, and this is what happens when you're exposed to a global community. You manage to learn a lot. And I was actually an ardent history reader, so I read a lot about history, and I found many times that climate change was was one of many reasons that ancient Egyptian civilization lost its river Nile next to the pyramids. So I connected this with this, and actually in physics, I connected what's happening in physics with the theory of change in the world. So it was all connected for me back then, and I continued on because it actually I was before that a full-time swimmer. I was competing in Cairo,
Swimming?
representing Wadi Degla, yeah, in competition national cups,
And you quit.
no, because of COVID I quit obviously, but
Ah.
now I am swimming but not competitively.
Mm.
But yeah, this is basically what educated me, because as I mentioned, I have a fear and I feel responsible for what's going to happen, and I want to make sure that we are all ready to what's happening, and I want to say to my children, I did my best to make sure that the planet is safe and we have a better future.
Right, but Mohab, I need to clarify something. At your age, 17 years old, you have lots and lots of messages to say to your peers, to your counterparts, to people of your like, to other young men, let's call it that way, who are watching you right now. The fact that you are thinking and that you are observing realities around you, that they are monitoring changes and asking too much, came from your father, your mother, one of your relatives. I mean, the way that you were brought up, how was it?
Actually, I was brought up like my father actually was the man that wants to put me in challenges to make sure that I'm strengthened. So this was one of my main motives, to always constantly take challenges. As a swimmer, I always took challenges. My mother as well motivated me. She was my backbone and still my backbone, like my father. So both of them endorsed my effort after they saw that I was actually learning something and something useful. So this is what.
But they're not working in civil society. They didn't urge you to read about
no, actually,
nature.
Actually, my father used to work in the cement industry, so he's very busy. And he later on like transferred to the renewable energy sector. This was one of my inspirations as well. That what is renewable energy? So I started to know what's renewable energy and start to engage. And he told me about the stuff they're doing for renewable energy. So I was inspired by that and see this as a cleaner energy resource. This was in 2019 as well, the beginning of 2019.
They were explaining to you. But now, I want to ask you also another important question that crossed my mind. Are you keen, are you realizing the importance of you delivering the same experience to people of your age? I mean, if you meet other boys of younger age, do you feel that it's important that you stretch your hands to them and you inspire them and you set awareness and make sure that as much as many people would join you in your cause?
Yes,
is that in your mind?
Always in my mind, actually. When I find people like very young, like I get inspired, especially from Egypt, because it's very rare to find someone who is a 10-year-old very engaged in the climate work. So this inspires me a lot, and I want to always get people engaged within the climate spectrum. And one of the key messages that I want people to be aware of in the negotiations like this, young people are actually driving the climate actions. They are the ambitious young leaders. So the stakeholders take on the position to deliver the commitments made.
From your own point of view, Egypt is now hosting a huge, very, very important summit. I want you to elaborate over that, and what do you expect from the upcoming COP27, especially that it's taking over its shoulder a lot of responsibilities, and it's carrying the mission out of the Glasgow summit and other summits. So
I would say this year is very hectic and very challenging for the Egyptian presidency, but they are adapting to it and they're doing lots of great work on that. Because we want to deliver as much as possible on commitments, because I'm going to talk about two different spectrum, mitigation and adaptation. So mitigation, people who are actually responsible behind the climate crisis are the people, let's say the G7, namely, let's say the US, China, and other European countries are the main emitters of CO2. They are the people who are responsible. Let's say 30% of the global CO2 emissions are from China. Only around 3 to 4% are from Africa. So imagine the gap that we have in here. Egypt emits 0.6. So they are the people who are actually responsible for the climate crisis, and they are the people who need to cut the emissions drastically and immediately. So Egypt has a position right now to represent the Global South and to be able to empower the voices of the Global South countries in the negotiation process. What I expect from this is we get an agreement on actually drastically cutting emissions, and actually in terms of the other spectrum, to actually enable countries to adapt to the climate crisis through many spectrums. Let's say finance, to get in the institutions, because Global South countries need lots of finance to adapt, because they are not the ones responsible. And other than that, people need to pay for reparations, loss and damage. So
that's true.
The Global North countries has a lot to do, and they are the universal decision makers in this, but we can make them accountable to pay. And actually Denmark a few days ago launched the loss and damage facility, so there is a progress in there. So there is a lot to do this year,
right?
But I have lots of expectations to meaningfully transform the pledges into commitments.
Right, and actually, as we're running out of time, but I need also to ask you, in your future plans here in Egypt, I know that you're traveling. We haven't talked that you have joined the school in Canada, and you won't be able to stay in Egypt, I mean, for the new academic year, and you're going to make a change in your life. Maybe you can talk about that in another episode of the breakfast show, but have it crossed your mind to form a community of your own or an organization so that you can inspire other people of your age and probably help others to follow your footsteps and carry the experience from you, maybe learn things from you, because it's very important. You are a good role model.
Yes, definitely. I've always thought of that, and whenever I have the chance, I actually managed to create like a network between other MENA delegates. But in Egypt, actually, I'm planning to do something like that soon, but when I have more chances to be able to unite people in action, and this is one of my plans for the future, definitely. But what my main focus now is to ensure that I'm very acting in a responsible way for the future generations to come, and actually for my generation, because we're the first ones to be heavily impacted, and we are the last ones to change that. So we have to change this narrative, and we have a voice, and we have a very powerful voice to deliver in the next decision-making process. And actually, I would love to thank the youth envoy of this COP, Dr. Omnia Al-Amrani, and the Ministry of Youth and Sports for their constant support of youth this year. And they have made lots of powerful impacts in transforming meaningful engagement at the Conference of the Parties.
Okay, great. On that note, Mohab, Sharif, Mohsen Gharib, the COP20 upcoming participant, of course, in COP27. I'd like to thank you, wish you the best of luck, and wish to see you again here, inshallah. All the best to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to go to a short break, and we'll come to continue the breakfast show, so stay with us.